Did you know you could one-shot a tank from full HP just by driving into it with an interceptor? Because that's just one of many secrets in Destiny that you might not know, and I'm going to show you 62 more in this video. Keep track of how many you learn because we're going to use the Guardian ranks to see where you place at the end. If it turns out you knew all of them, I'll give you a rank 11, but if you happen to learn a ton of new things today, you might be a rank 1. Keep a count of how many you didn't know, and let's start with the shading on your radar. It's broken into 3 parts: the middle circle for when someone's within melee distance, the donut for when they're within weapon range, and then the outer line just to let you know someone might be on your flank. If someone is on the same level as me, it's brighter towards the middle, but if they're on a different level than you, it's going to be brighter on the outside of the circle. For a fun one, did you know you can grapple noble rounds from the exotic hand cannon Lumina to cross huge distances using Strand? Void spike nades do not work from a ceiling, so don't toss them there. When you're rallying the flag for an encounter in PvE, it fills all of your ammo and abilities, right? Make note of the fact that I have 6 rockets and 19 fusion shots from this one. To really take advantage of rally flags, you would ideally have ammo reserve mods on your chest piece to give you more. Notice how redoing it gives me 9 rockets and 26 fusion shots. Keeping 1 legendary piece on your character with 3 reserve mods to swap to before you rally the flag is great because you can swap back to your actual chest piece afterwards and keep all of the bonus ammo. If you struggle getting knocked off of platforms by boss stomps, you can actually block that knockback by simply punching them right as they slam. When cruising around on your Sparrow, landing from a large fall can blow it up and kill you. A common location is right from here off of Neptune, but to prevent this, all you gotta do is press the keybind you have for juking on your Sparrow and you'll land safe every time. Thorn, Osteostriga, Touch of Malice, and Necrochasm are 4 of Destiny's exotic weapons that have a special interaction with the Warlock's Necrotic Grips exotic. You see, with these gauntlets at base, when you melee something, it'll poison them. Then once they die, that poison spreads to kill the rest of the enemies. This is awesome even just for that, but needing the melee is a little bit limiting, and that's where the other 4 exotics come in. They will actually allow these gauntlets to transfer the poison to the enemy through the bullets of those weapons. Speaking of the term bullets, did you know that Thorn doesn't technically shoot them? If you look closely at the wall, they're actually shooting these little arrowhead spike things, which I suppose we could call thorns. And one more fun fact about the Necrotic Grips is that you can actually poison your own teammates. I thought that was rather odd. Enemies in PvE will shoot you when they can see your head, but what happens when you simply hide your head while standing in front of them? Certain emotes will actually send your Guardian's head in a backwards direction, allowing you to do that, which means you can literally sit in front of tons of enemies without them ever shooting you. This particular emote is the Royal Alignment. The Titan Barricade blocks incoming damage, but did you know that there's an invisible section around the whole thing that will continue to block bullets? Because of this, you can crouch really tight to the center and have a lot more protection than you think. In the Dares of Eternity activity, after the intro section, there's a part where you have to take this stream to get all the way through up to that opening to move on to the next section. I still see new players struggling with this, so I wanted to remind you of the 2 ways for it. Number 1 is paying attention to the half sphere on the side. As soon as those 2 halves line up, just walk through and you're going to be good to go. Alternatively, a much funnier method is simply walking backwards anytime you want. Now, while this method will work for most people, if you're still on an older console with 30 FPS, it tends to mess up quite a bit, which brings me to my next point. FPS, known as frames per second that your game is running, affects movement and essentially gravity within Destiny. The lower the FPS, the lighter your Guardian feels, which impacts momentum entirely. It's a large part of why the Root of Nightmares raid struggled so much on day 1 with that Launchpads encounter. Bungie even acknowledged it afterwards. Icarus Dash is a Warlock movement to move around in the air. It's incredibly fun and versatile, but I still see new players doing it wrong. Here you'll see someone who just jumps up and uses it regularly, whereas the second person actually uses their jump button to activate a boost right before using Icarus Dash. If you make sure to press jump right before using it, you'll go much further. If you start charging a grenade, then realize you wish you hadn't, you can actually cancel it at any point by just tapping sprint or swapping weapons. If you try and shoot a waveframe grenade launcher, your barricade will stop it. But did you know that a rally barricade will actually allow that to pass through so that you can take care of swarming ads? If you're brand new and lost on one of the planets, sometimes you'll pull out your map and have no clue where you are because the little indicator is disappeared. This is a glitch that has been around for a long time, so I just want to remind you that hopping on your Sparrow will fix that issue and put you back on the map. A lot of things in Destiny proc off your powered melee. For example, the heavy-handed mod gives an orb of power on a melee kill as long as it was powered. That's all fine and dandy, but there's a number of different ways you can actually make your regular melee count as powered so that you can proc these types of things infinitely. Covering all three classes, starting with Titan, 3 methods exist. For Void Titan, whenever you have an overshield, the offensive bulwark aspect will transform that regular melee into a powered one. I can just keep punching and keep making orbs. For Arc, when you're wearing the knockout aspect, it makes it so that when you break a combatant's shield, it'll start a timer that then converts your regular into powered. For Solar, you want the Roaring Flames aspect. Get an ability kill first to get it going, and then after that, every single regular melee will count as powered. For Hunters, there's one method that exists, which is on the Arc subclass. Using the combination blow for your melee, you do need to first use up your powered charge getting a kill with it, but once that's up, every single uncharged melee afterwards will count as powered. A pro tip here is using Gambler's Dodge, which recharges your melee when dodging your enemies so that you can infinitely loop this. Onto Warlocks, there's technically no method for a regular melee to infinitely loop and count as a powered one. I suppose you could talk about Strand. Whenever you activate the grapple, which is a grenade function, and you're flying through midair, it's actually going to make that next melee a special one that doesn't eat your charge. Think of it as like a post-grapple momentum melee. Well, this thing actually counts for all of those same powered melee benefits. On the topic of powered melees, we need to discuss the hands-on mod for your helmet because it's finally been fixed. For context, this gives super energy from melee kills, so when I shoulder charged this guy, I got a nice little boost. It needs to be a powered melee, even though the description doesn't say that, so this next clip will show a melee kill with no boost at all. But what I really want to talk about is the fact that Bungie finally fixed this for Crucible. It's been years that this was bugged and did absolutely nothing for you, powered or not, but my friends, it has finally been adjusted. You can now consider using this in a lot of your builds and start getting your super a lot earlier. Threshers, turrets, and shriekers are a huge pain in the butt. I've shown in previous videos how you can throw a blinding nade to disable them, but I forgot to show the fact that it works with blinding perks as well. Using a special ammo grenade launcher with the disorienting perk, I can shut these puppies down. The Arcstaff super deflects incoming damage, and my buddies and I wanted to test it against all of the other supers in the game. For example, you can see here that it blocks the Dawn Blade pretty easily, but when it comes to Nova Bomb, it's actually pretty tricky. On my first try, I was able to block it successfully, but I tend to over-test things, so on every try after that, I kept dying. I was pretty surprised by the results, so I'm actually going to play out all of the supers against it so you can just watch how they interact with each other while I talk about today's sponsor, Drink Control, because I really like their product. If you're anything like me, when I get in the zone on something, like whether it's a project or just a gaming session, I tend to eat a lot of junk food, like it's brutal. I would be embarrassed to show you my desk. But then eventually I started trying out things like meal replacements, protein bars, all that good stuff, and Control tastes really good. Their core business is around 3 products. So they have the meal replacement shake. I'm actually having one right now while I edit this video. They have protein cookies in a bunch of different flavors. Like this is my favorite one here, the chocolate chunk, but Haley's, my wife, that's definitely the peanut butter pieces one. And then they also have protein bars, which I've eaten all of them. So I'm just going to throw up a picture on there for you. The reason I love them so much is because A, they just taste really good. Like even their cookies, they're really, really tender. The drinks are really filling, like they're high in protein, but they're not too high in calories. They only have 1 gram of sugar, a good amount of fiber, and then they have a lot of flavors too. Like right now I'm having Cocoa Crunch, but I actually really want to try out the strawberries and cream next time I make an order. They have a really sweet deal going on right now. If you go to their website and use their bundle builder, the more products that you buy will get you up to 20% off. And then on top of that, if you use my specific code CASTLE, that'll give you an additional 10% off that stacks with the 20%. Basically, this is a really good deal right now within this window of time. And I know Christmas is right around the corner, so it can be a great gift. Like I plan to give this to some of my family members. Just go to their website, make sure you use my code to get the extra 10% off. And by the way, at the end of this clip, I'm going to make you a summary table of which ones the Arcstaff deflected. Oh yeah, there's also the conditional finality. Not a super, but that thing will crush you. Shatter skating is a technique used by a lot of speedrunners to get around quickly. It's becoming more and more popular, so I wanted to teach anyone who might not know. Step 1 is having a sword with the Eager Edge perk on it. Step 2 is to be on either Stasis Hunter or a Well of Radiance Warlock. Step 3 is to simply be on a ledge of some kind. Step 4, you pull out the sword to activate the Eager Edge perk. Step 5, you press heavy attack. Step 6, you hit your jump button immediately after that heavy attack button, and then step 7 is hitting the shatter dive button immediately after that. Step 8 is profit and showing all of your friends. For Well of Radiance, the steps are identical, except instead of shatter dive, you're going to use your super button. For my Titans out there, you can do this with Bubble instead of Well of Radiance on Warlock, for example, but it's much harder. Now for the memes, you don't technically need a sword with Eager Edge. You can skate using any heavy, it just looks really funny and doesn't really do anything. If you're dealing with the pesky Titan behind their barricade, you can actually blink right through it without taking damage. On the topic of Void Warlocks using Blink, if you've ever played Crota's End Raid, a fun tip is the fact that you can blink right through those green Enlightened walls without losing your Enlightened buff. Firepower is a mod that spawns an orb with grenade kills. What you might not know is that shattering stasis crystals counts for this, allowing for one grenade to result in multiple orbs during regular gameplay because of how long they stay up. Staying on that topic is a cool interaction with the Mothkeeper's Wraps exotic. Hunters that wear these get their grenade converted into these two moths when you throw it. Both of those can turn around and kill enemies, proccing firepower to give you 2 orbs at the price of 1. There's an interaction between 2 hunter exotics you might not realize: Knucklehead Radar and Gemini Jesters. Normally when a hunter wearing Gemini Jesters dodges near you, the radar will disappear. Well, what happens if you're wearing the Knucklehead exotic? That helmet at base makes it so you keep your radar when aiming down sights, so maybe it'll counteract the blinding effect from Geminis. Turns out it does, but only while aiming down sights. They can dodge here while I'm ADS and it has no impact on the radar until I let go of it. Who knows if this was intended by Bungie, but I found it interesting. Some Crucible junkies out there tend to slide over and over. I'm one of them actually, and it always drove me nuts how sometimes it would just randomly not work and get me killed. I finally decided to test this out and realized that it's like a consistent glitch that happens after 11 slides. You can literally slide 11 times in a row, and without fail, the 12th one will not work. It'll just kind of hop you up and screw you over. Speaking of sliding, ages ago when I was bored, I found out that you can see your body cut in half if you just look behind yourself during a slide. Here's a random one. If you jump off of the ledge behind the postmaster at the tower, the fans will blow you all the way back up. Now let's say you're loading into the wrong activity by accident. Instead of sitting there waiting just to back out once you land, changing characters is a great way to prevent that, and there's even a trick you might not know. For console, you simply follow the steps I just showed on the screen, but for PC, you can usually bring this menu up with a shortcut, right? Well, oftentimes when you're loading in, that doesn't actually work. So to circumvent that, just open up the character screen and double tap escape. It'll work every time. If you've ever wanted to look at the top-down view of a PvP map to try and figure out where certain things are, there's actually someone who's made a ton of incredible ones like this. His name is Relict, and I've provided you with a link in the description to where all of these are saved. On the Nessus map in Gambit, did you know there was a secret portal at the bottom of the drill? Secret enough that if you get invaded, you might even be able to sneak attack them from behind? There's a ghost in Destiny that shows your all-time kills in the entire game, separating PvE and PvP. You don't need to have been wearing it, you didn't need to even have it on your account, and even free-to-play users can snag it from shacks if it's not in your collections. Once you equip it, just go to any location or map and then pull it out for your stats. What I'm really curious about is if anyone watching has broke the limit. It seems to have a 10 million cap on it, but surely someone out there has outdone that. When using your Thunder Crash super on Arc Titan, you can make it go much faster if you pop it in the middle of a shoulder charge. The Elemental Charge mod converts elemental pickups like these shards of stasis into armor charges. It takes 4 of them to create 1 armor charge. What's cool though is that say you got 5 of them from a glacier grenade like I did here and then burned your armor charge by throwing another grenade. This does not reset that counter back to 0. You won't need another 4 shards to get your next armor charge because the game remembers you picked up that 5th one. When playing a fun stasis build, this will keep going and looping, by the way. So here I only needed 3 shards, right? Well then the next one I only need 2 shards, and so on and so forth. On the Titan class, you can fly across any gap using any sword as long as you're using the Lion Rampant exotic and the catapult jump. All you gotta do is jump off the ledge, swipe with your sword to gain some forward momentum, and then boost back up by tapping jump twice. Because the exotic gives extra boost time, you can end up looping this interaction infinitely. If you're trying to cover a large distance quickly on your character, using the Eager Edge Sword is great for that. You simply pull it out, swipe, and it'll send you a long way. What some people don't realize is that if you actually time a nice little hop in between, you can carry that momentum so that you just keep doing this over and over. I jump up, swipe with Eager Edge, and then on my way down, I just have to activate a couple of Titan boosts to keep that momentum going before I want to reuse Eager Edge. Dealing with enemy immunities like these ones specifically on a servitor barrier can be very annoying when you're just trying to cruise through some content. Your super can actually rip through just about all kinds of immunity. There's no need to stun the barrier here for ditching those enemies around it. I can just plow right through them. The Sleeper Simulant is an exotic linear fusion rifle that a lot of people sleep on. Compared to all other linear fusions in the game, this thing deals by far the most damage per shot, and even though it shoots a bit slower, the DPS is ridiculous when it comes to a base setting. So for anyone who just wants to point and shoot and not worry about setting up these hardcore specific DPS mechanics, this is an incredible option. Here's a cool interaction that blew my mind the other day. When walking into my buddy's rift to get an Arc Soul, I happened to have my purple buddy up, which is named the Child of the Old God, and they started to orbit around each other. In case you noticed a little yellow dot pop up on enemies when they get low in health, it's a visual indicator that you can use a finisher on them. The X-Dirus is an exotic weapon allowing you to shoot forever, never having to reload. I find this interesting that Bungie gave it a reload stat of 69.
Nice.
When swapping from your primary to your shotgun in a panic, most people spam that fire button. Whether it's clicking a mouse or the trigger pull on a controller, you basically want to shoot as soon as possible, right? This makes sense. Well, you actually shouldn't be spamming fire and instead just hold down that button to shoot even sooner. Weapons in Destiny illuminate to signal a special interaction that's about to occur. Aiming down sights with an unstoppable fusion here will make it shine, but even damage perks on opposing players in third person will also glow a nice bright white. When you have a place you need to get to on the map, sometimes it's in between two fast travel nodes and you're not quite sure which one will be quicker. Marking it will actually highlight the nearest node, indicating which one's quicker. When you pop Dawnblade on Warlock, there are three things eating away at your super bar. The first is obviously the fact that it just drains over time. The second is throwing your Dawnblades, and the third is every time you dash forward. In chaotic situations, I see people spamming this a lot, so if that's you, try consuming your grenade right before popping your super. This makes it so that each of those dashes eat way less of your super every time. If someone throws an Axion Bolt grenade at you, just remember you can shoot them, please. When you're crouched behind cover, aiming down sights automatically pokes your head out so that you can get a shot in, and as soon as you unscope your weapon, it'll drop you back down automatically. This can be great for peek shooting in both PvE and PvP. The energy type of your weapon deals more damage when it matches the color shield of the enemy. It also causes an explosion upon killing them. The word surge is tossed around a lot in this game, and there are three things I want to clear up. First is activity surges. For that specific thing you're about to play, this will tell you that any weapon of that element will deal 25% more damage than usual. This is not to be confused with Overcharged. That's another activity buff that doesn't stack with the activity surge. That's just specific to a type of weapon. Number two is the fact that I still hear people hovering over the threat node, which refers to what you take more damage from, and call it a surge. It's not a surge, people, it's a threat. Lastly are surges on your boots. Each blue mod is a bonus damage called surge for weapons of that element. They stack with diminishing returns, and even though you can only fit 3 on your boots, part B of this topic is the fact that there's a 4th level and certain exotic armors can help you get there. Eternal Warrior, for example, grants it right after my super runs out, so here you'll notice that it says 4x weapon arc surge, and that's a full 25% bonus damage compared to the 22 if I was to only use 3 on my boots. When roaming around on a planet, you can illuminate all the items on a map by pulling out your ghost, but it's limited on what it'll pick up, so sometimes you can scope in with a sniper and see way more of what you might be looking for. A lot of people still don't realize that the crit spot on a Cabal shield is staring right at you, that glowing center. A good example that people might even bring up in the comments is the fact that Cabals have a crit spot on their head, but they also have one on their back that's even better. Notice how those vents are glowing. In PvP, it's still common to see people slowly strafing out of cover. This can make you pretty vulnerable, and I'd say the next evolution of movement that people learn after this is deciding to slide out of cover. But doing that, they still tend to slide first, then look at their target, then aim down sights and struggle. If you actually press aim down sights right after sliding, your Guardian will stay standing but keep the sliding momentum and help you hit your shots much better. In case you haven't noticed, next time you're in the transmog screen, realize that you can favorite shaders. I may have included this tip just so that I could ask Bungie to please give us a search bar. Destiny has a setting called full auto firing, but it's off by default. With this on, you can shoot any weapons full clip by simply holding down the button, and it comes in real handy when you're shooting a zillion enemies in PvE. There's a glitch where one of the dregs coming out of this door is actually named Pike Dreg. That name is restricted to when they're actually riding pikes, of course, but for some reason, Gary over here likes to come out of this one hallway without fail. At the tower, you can go to the Cryptarch named Rahul for some materials exchange. I found it funny that it tells you the cost changes daily, like as if this exchange rate is random and different every single day, and that you should definitely check back often. Turns out that's just not true. These never change, and this is simply an old note coded into the game from a long time ago that they forgot to remove when implementing this. Did you know that on a computer you can go straight from full screen to windowed mode with a simple hotkey? I don't need to pick it from the drop down here. I can just hit Alt-Enter and bam, it's a smaller window that I can move around. Hit Alt-Enter again and you can just go back and forth seamlessly. Now, with all of that said and done, how did you end up doing and where do you land on the Destiny Guardian ranks? If you knew them all, that's insanely impressive. Maybe you can help me make more of these videos. As for now, here's another video on screen you can click to watch over 50 more topics that you might not know.